At 11:42 p.m. on November 18, 2024, Antoine Broussard stood in the control room of Cora, Texas sugar mill near White Castle, Louisiana, watching the real-time monitoring system show incoming cane deliveries had stopped 38 minutes ago, while the mill's crushing capacity sat idle processing 0 tons per hour, despite 24/7 operational requirements. 57 years old, third-generation sugarcane farmer and mill board member, managing 1,200 acres, delivering 48,000 tons annually. The digital display showed 23 hours and 14 minutes had elapsed since the last harvest from his primary fields, approaching the 24-hour sugar degradation threshold where sucrose converted to glucose and fructose, reducing recoverable sugar by 8 to 12% and costing his operation $96,000 in lost revenue. His primary harvester had broken down at 6:15 p.m., hydraulic failure on the base cutter mechanism that severed cane stalks at ground level. Standard procedure said wait for the $4,200 replacement part arriving tomorrow morning, accept the sugar loss on standing cane, and resume operations with proper repairs. Broussard had 4 backup harvesters scattered across 1,200 acres. A mill operating at 0 capacity burning $8,400 per hour in fixed costs, and 87 other farmers depending on continuous mill operations to process their time-sensitive cane. He called his equipment coordinator. They'd cannibalize parts from 2 backup machines, build a functioning harvester, boss and restart deliveries within 3 hours regardless of long-term equipment consequences. Louisiana's sugarcane belt operates as a synchronized industrial system, producing 1.6 million tons of raw sugar annually from 400,000 acres, supplying 90% of U.S. cane sugar through a network of 11 mills processing 12 million tons of harvested cane during the October to December harvest window. Every day during peak season, specialized cane harvesters cut and load 300-plus tons per machine daily, moving cut cane via 2,400-plus trucks and dedicated rail lines to mills operating 24/7, where crushing equipment processes cane within 24 hours of harvest to prevent sugar loss from enzymatic breakdown. The mills crush cane through rotating roller mills extracting juice, clarify the liquid through lime and heat treatment, evaporate water through multiple effective evaporators, crystallize sugar through controlled cooling, and centrifuge crystals to produce raw sugar sold to refineries. This is agriculture as continuous manufacturing, where harvest interruptions cost $8,400 per hour in mill idle time. Processing delays reduce sugar recovery by 0.5% per hour after 24-hour harvest. And equipment failures cascade through systems affecting 500-plus individual farming operations coordinating deliveries. Antoine Broussard learned sugarcane farming from his father, who learned from his grandfather, who established the family operation in 1958, when Louisiana Sugarcane transitioned from hand-cutting with machetes to mechanical harvesting. His grandfather had grown cane on 180 acres, employed 40 workers during harvest to hand-cut stalks, and hauled cane in wagons pulled by tractors to the mill. His father mechanized fully in 1982, buying the first whole-stalk harvesters that cut cane without chopping it into billets, expanded to 620 acres, and invested in the cooperative mill structure that consolidated independent mills into larger, more efficient facilities. Broussard took over in 1996, expanded to 1,200 acres, and invested $4.8 million in modern harvest infrastructure, including 4 John Deere CH-570 cane harvesters operating simultaneously to complete harvest within the 70 to 90-day window. But the system's efficiency created fragility. When equipment failed, the entire synchronized operation collapsed. The John Deere CH-570 harvester Broussard's crew operated cost $620,000 new in 2020. The machine weighed 52,000 pounds, featured a base cutter spinning at 850 revolutions per minute that severed cane stalks flush with ground level, knockdown rollers that laid standing cane onto a gathering table, chopper drums that cut stalks into 12-inch billets, and an elevator system that loaded billets into trucks, traveling alongside at 2.8 miles per hour. The harvester processed 300 tons daily, across 12 to 15 acres when functioning properly. The base cutter mechanism, critical for clean cuts that prevented soil contamination and maintained stalk quality, operated under extreme stress, cutting through 1 to 2-inch diameter stalks at ground level where sand and debris accelerated wear. The hydraulic system powering the base cutter failed after 840 hours of operation this season, requiring replacement of the $4,200 hydraulic motor that wouldn't arrive until tomorrow. The economics were complex and mill-dependent. At contract rates of $42.50 per ton for cane testing 13% recoverable sugar, each acre yielding 40 tons generated $1,700 in gross revenue. Seed cane costs: $185 per acre for disease-resistant varieties replanted every 3 to 4 years. Fertilizer added $240 per acre. Sugarcane required nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in quantities exceeding most crops. Herbicides and insecticides: $145 per acre for control of Johnson grass and sugarcane borer. Harvest costs, including equipment and transportation: $520 per acre. The single largest expense reflecting specialized equipment and rapid processing requirements. Mill processing fees, $8.50 per ton, totaling $340 per acre. Gas total costs: $1,430 per acre against $1,700 revenue. That left $270 profit per acre before land costs and equipment depreciation. Across 1,200 acres, Broussard generated $2.04 million in gross revenue and maybe $324,000 in operating profit, after equipment depreciation and loan payments. Actual net income around $118,000. For managing a $6.2 million operation, coordinating with mill schedules. The margins disappeared completely when sugar degradation reduced recoverable sugar from 13% to 11.8%. Suddenly, revenue dropped to $1,540 per acre, and profit collapsed to $110 per acre, or $132,000 total operating profit, reducing net income to essentially zero. At 12:50 a.m., Broussard's equipment coordinator reported the cannibalization was complete. They'd removed the hydraulic motor from harvester number 3, installed it on harvester number 1, and tested the base cutter mechanism. Functional. But harvester number 3 was now disabled until the replacement part arrived and could be installed there. The operation had traded one broken machine for one working machine while creating future repair obligations. This was crisis management in agricultural equipment operations. Rob from tomorrow to survive today. The harvester reached the field at 1:35 a.m. The crew started cutting at 1:52 a.m., working under LED lights mounted on the machine and support vehicles. The cane came up well. Clean cuts, minimal soil contamination, proper billet length. But the clock was running. The cane in this field had been cut in the previous harvest cycle 26 hours ago. The stalks lying on the ground, waiting for collection, had exceeded the 24-hour optimal window. Sugar content was degrading. By the time this cane reached the mill for processing, recoverable sugar would test at approximately 12.2% instead of the 13% it would have shown at 20 hours post-harvest. Broussard's son, Michel, arrived at 3:40 a.m. to help coordinate the mill delivery logistics. 33 years old, holding an agricultural engineering degree from LSU. He'd worked the family operation for 8 years, while also serving on the mill's technical committee that optimized processing efficiency. Michel had watched sugarcane farming evolve from a profitable enterprise generating 15 to 20% margins in the 1990s to a break-even operation generating 5 to 8% margins in 2024. The compression came from multiple directions. Sugar prices stagnant at 50 cents to 56 cents per pound for 15 years, while input costs increased 60%. Mill consolidation reducing competition and farmer negotiating power, and environmental regulations increasing compliance costs by $45,000 annually for his family's operation. Dead. Even if we get this cane to the mill on time, we're looking at reduced sugar recovery from the delay. That's probably $38,000 in lost revenue across the affected acres. I know. But losing the entire crop to degradation costs $96,000. We're choosing the smaller loss. That's been our strategy for 5 years, choosing which loss to accept. At some point, we need to acknowledge the operation isn't economically viable at this scale. Broussard didn't respond. His son was correct. But walking away from 66 years of family farming felt impossible, even when the mathematics said it was necessary. By 6:20 a.m., the harvester had cut 84 acres and loaded 3,360 tons into trucks that delivered continuously to the mill. The mill's crushing capacity had resumed at 5:15 a.m. when the first loads arrived, returning to full 500 tons per hour processing that would continue until the next disruption. The system had survived the crisis. The costs had accumulated anyway. The mill's quality testing on November 20th confirmed the sugar degradation. Cane delivered between 1:50 a.m. and 11 a.m. tested at average 12.1% recoverable sugar versus the 13% baseline. The revenue calculation adjusted automatically. $42.50 per ton at 13% sugar became $39.50 per ton at 12.1% sugar. A $3 per ton reduction across 3,360 tons, meaning $10,080 in lost revenue. NERCO combined with the emergency equipment cannibalization, creating $8,400 in deferred repair costs and the mill's idle time charges of $6,200 allocated to his operation for the delivery interruption. The total crisis cost was $24,680. His November profit had been projected at $27,000. The equipment failure had consumed 91% of the month's earnings. Antoine Broussard continued sugarcane farming through 2026, managing equipment crises, coordinating with mill schedules, watching margins compress as sugar prices remained flat, while diesel fuel increased 18%, and fertilizer costs rose 22%. In spring 2027, the Cora, Texas mill announced it would require minimum delivery commitments of 60,000 tons annually, beginning in 2028, a 25% increase over Broussard's current 48,000-ton production. Meeting the new minimum would require expanding to 1,500 acres and purchasing 2 additional harvesters at $1.3 million total investment. He met with Michel in April 2027 to discuss options. Expansion meant $3.8 million in additional debt for land acquisition and equipment. At current margins, the expanded operation would generate maybe $147,000 in net income against $5.4 million in debt service. Inadequate returns. Not expanding meant losing mill access because the cooperative structure required meeting minimum volume commitments to maintain membership. Michel, we either get bigger or get out. Those are the only choices. Dad. Getting bigger just scales up the losses when sugar prices drop or equipment fails. The risk grows with every acre we add. Then we're out. They sat in silence. 3 generations ending with a spreadsheet showing expansion, generating 2.7% return on investment, below the inflation rate and far below what capital could earn in alternative investments. Antoine Broussard sold the sugarcane operation in August 2027 to a regional agricultural corporation managing 18,000 acres across 4 parishes. They paid $8,800 per acre for land and $2.1 million for equipment. After settling debt, Broussard netted $6.4 million. He and his wife retired comfortably. Michel took a position with the acquiring corporation as a harvest operations manager, using his LSU engineering education to optimize equipment reliability for an operation his generation would manage but not own. Louisiana's 400,000 acres continue producing 12 million tons of sugarcane annually, Runo processing through 11 mills operating 24/7 during harvest season, generating 1.6 million tons of raw sugar, supplying 90% of U.S. cane sugar consumption. The harvest window runs October through December, regardless of who farms the land. The mills crush continuously, regardless of ownership structures. The system functions through synchronization that family operations pioneered, but can no longer sustain at scales required for profitability. The cane flows to mills. The sugar crystallizes in evaporators. The families exit into corporate structures that value tonnage over legacy. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us preserve these histories of American agriculture's transformation. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and whether you understand the mill consolidation pressures crushing family sugarcane farmers. Thank you for keeping their stories alive.